This is one of my favorite chapters, the chapter on intervals. But one that's really, really important to you, because if you don't really get a good firm understanding and some memorization of the intervals, then when we move on to triads, triads are just simply two intervals put together. If you don't understand intervals, you won't understand triads. If you don't understand intervals and triads, then you also won't understand sevenths, because that's yet another interval. In other words, almost everything we do from now on is going to be done with the assumption that you know your intervals. So I'm going to try to make a really graphic statement here. And I'm going to show you what that line means here in just a second. But first, let's talk about those two words. These are a little bit confusing because we have reattached some meaning to the word dissonance that really doesn't belong. Let me ask you what you think dissonance is.
Two things that sound off-putting when put together.
Yes.
Two separate things.
That sounds what?
Off-putting.
Off-putting. Okay. Off-putting. I like putting. It sounds off, all right? And that is the dissonance that you know. That is correct. However, not all dissonance is bad. And in fact, some of the dissonance that, or some of the things that I will tell you are dissonances, you'll say, no, those can't be dissonances. Those must be consonances. Because we get the idea that dissonance shouldn't be played together and consonants should be played together. Okay, now that's actually wrong, no. Now let me tell you what dissonance is. Remember the talk we had on frequencies? A440, as in the frequency of the string going back and forth 440 times. Okay? Remember that? All right? When we add two notes together, such as an A and a G sharp, those two numbers, and I don't know the frequency of G sharp, but it must be something like 456. Something like that. Yeah, it must be something very close to 440. And it actually, it has such a clash to it that we immediately know it as a dissonance. Those sounds cool. Like, and you can actually hear the dissonance fighting each other. Now, and what I might say is that there isn't a correlation between their numbers, okay? And that's why they fight so hard. They're not in the same family or something like that, all right? However, there are some dissonances that do not have, the two frequency numbers do not have any mathematical collision of any sort, collusion, I guess is what I meant. But that are still very nice. For instance, A to F sharp is a nice sound. It's a nice sound. It sounds like this, I think.
Bum.
Yeah, right, there you go. There's the
NBC.
Right? And under our other definition of dissonance, we would say this couldn't possibly be a dissonance. But here's the real truth. And you know you've come to depend on me to tell you the truth.
We've got that on camera.
Mr. Tuesday, counting lines.
The combination of two notes in an interval that cannot be absolutely perfectly tuned are called dissonance. And that comes down to this: seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths cannot be perfectly tuned. In other words, if you brought a Strobocon in here and you put it on major sixth or whatever you want to use the Strobocon for, but you got the A and the F sharp together, you could not tune that F sharp in any way so that there wasn't a wobble. There will always be a wobble with A to F sharp. Now, the wobble itself does not hurt us, and we don't mind it. However, and let's take a third, for instance. You might be thinking thirds are supposed to be the good boys, and they are. I mean, we like our thirds. In fact, our major thirds make our major chords, and our minor thirds make our minor chords, so they are very important. However, there's another one that is absolutely not completely tunable, because the distance from the G to the B, say, cannot be perfectly seated. In other words, if you put the two of them together on a Strobocon, you would never get rid of the wave. Now that's a good thing, though, because when we are talking about the third, that is, say, from G to B in the 5 chord, and I know I'm saying some things that we haven't gotten to yet, but in the 5 chord, which is going to 1 in the key of C, we like to stretch that third. We wouldn't stretch a 5th because we wouldn't like it. We wouldn't stretch a 4th either. But we can stretch it. So use that means the same thing called primes. I'll put an S on there. Fourths, fifths, and octaves. Okay? Those can be tuned absolutely perfectly. Now we're talking pure tuning too. We're not talking tempered, because remember, in tempered tuning, we on purpose untune the 5th just a little bit. Right? But when we play our instruments and we tune to each other, or especially if we play a stringed instrument such as the guitar or the violin or something like that, we can get those absolutely in tune. And by that I mean we can play the G and the D string on the violin until there is no wobble. And that's how we tune. When I throw you out a B flat, everybody works to play that B flat in unison, so closely together or so perfectly together that there is no wobble. We're trying to get rid of wobble when we are tuning, okay? But you can only do that on these, okay? Now, these over here are called minors, or majors and minors. Let me know when that runs out. These over here, and this is really important, these over here are never ever called minors or majors. It's either perfect, or it's diminished, or augmented. Okay? And perfect means that we can get it absolutely in tune. If we had the Strobocon, we could set it, and it would, if we got the two of them perfectly in tune, there would be no wobble. Now, guitar players like to either tune by unison or by fourths, and it makes a lot of sense. Are you a guitar player?
A little bit.
A little bit. Did we have any guitar players over here? No. Okay.
I can play a bit.
All right. When you tune the guitar, you either play the two open strings like the G and A, or you go up to the 5th fret and you play it by unison.
That's what I do.
Okay. Now the problem is, on the guitar there are only 4 perfect fourths, and then there is a major third. From G to B is a major third, and that is a real problem sometimes, getting that in tune, because, as I said, the B has no exact and precise spot from G. We all can get it kind of close, but again, it's not scientifically perfect. So we go through all sorts of things. Well, one of the things is to go up to the 4th fret and you do it as a unison, and that works. Or we play the G and the first finger C, which is a 4th, and try to get it in tune that way. But we have to find other ways of tuning the B string, because it is not, if you only tune it to the G, you can't really say it's in tune. All right?